He was 42 years old and he had just made a decision that would cost him everything. His name was Marcus Sterling and he was one of the most powerful men in the entertainment industry. Marcus produced films. Marcus owned production companies. Marcus had won dozens of awards. Marcus had built an empire worth over $2 billion. But Marcus also had a secret. Marcus had a secret that, if exposed, would destroy everything he had built. Marcus had a secret that the world was not ready to know. Marcus had a secret that involved another man and a decade of hidden love and carefully constructed lies. Then came the accident. Before we tell you what happened, I need to tell you why you clicked on this video. I need to tell you what brought you here because your curiosity about secrets and power and the cost of hiding who you really are is the reason you're watching this right now. You clicked on this because you understand what it feels like to hide part of yourself. You clicked on this because you've watched someone in power maintain a facade while living a double life. You clicked on this because you've wondered, what is the actual cost of keeping a secret this big? What happens when the walls come down? What happens when you have to confront the truth? You clicked on this because you know what it's like when love and blackmail become intertwined. You clicked on this because you want to know, can real connection survive in a situation built on lies and coercion? Can genuine feeling grow in a situation that started with manipulation? This story is about what happens when someone powerful is forced to become vulnerable. This story is about what happens when a man who has spent his entire life controlling his image is forced to let his walls down. This story is about what happens when the cost of the secret becomes higher than the cost of the truth. Let's begin. Sarah Chen was 34 years old. Sarah worked as a personal assistant for Marcus Sterling. Sarah had worked for Marcus for 4 years. Sarah was smart, organized, and discreet. Sarah had signed an extensive non-disclosure agreement. Sarah knew things about Marcus that very few people knew. But Sarah didn't know the most important thing. Sarah didn't know that Marcus had been in love with the same man for 12 years. Sarah didn't know that Marcus visited a small house in the Hollywood Hills twice a week, every week without fail. Sarah didn't know that Marcus had a parallel life that was completely separate from his public life. What Sarah did know was that on a Tuesday evening in March, Marcus's car was hit by another vehicle. Marcus was driving home from the small house in the Hollywood Hills. Marcus had a 5-minute injury. Marcus was hospitalized. The hospital contacted Sarah because Sarah was listed as his emergency contact. The hospital told Sarah that Marcus had a broken arm, several fractured ribs, and a concussion. The hospital told Sarah that Marcus would need care at home for at least 2 months while he recovered. Marcus called Sarah from the hospital. Marcus's voice was weak and in pain. "I need you to do something for me," Marcus said. "I need you to go to the house on Laurel Canyon. Do you know where it is?" Sarah knew the address. Sarah had picked Marcus up from that address many times over the past 4 years. Sarah had never asked questions about who lived there or why Marcus went there so frequently. "Yes," Sarah said. "I need you to go there and tell David that I'm in the hospital," Marcus said. "I need you to tell him not to try to contact me. I need you to tell him that I'll explain everything when I'm better." Sarah drove to the house on Laurel Canyon. She rang the doorbell. A man answered. The man was tall and handsome and looked devastated. The man's name was David, and he had been in love with Marcus Sterling for 12 years. Sarah told David what had happened. David's face went pale. David asked if Marcus was okay. Sarah told him that Marcus had injuries but would recover. Sarah told him that Marcus had asked her to tell David not to contact him. David understood what this meant. David understood that Marcus was going to have to explain his relationship with David to someone. David understood that the secret was about to become much harder to keep. Marcus was released from the hospital after 1 week. Marcus had a broken arm in a cast. Marcus had pain medication. Marcus had instructions to rest and not do any heavy lifting or strenuous activity. Marcus also had a problem. Marcus needed someone to help him. Marcus needed someone to help him bathe, to help him dress, to help him eat, to help him take his medication. Marcus needed a caregiver. Marcus called his lawyer. Marcus's lawyer was a woman named Victoria, and she had been helping Marcus maintain his secret for years. Victoria knew about David. Victoria knew about Marcus's sexuality. Victoria had signed confidentiality agreements that would send her to prison if she ever disclosed what she knew. "I need you to call Sarah," Marcus told Victoria. "I need you to hire her as my caregiver. I need to pay her whatever it takes to keep her quiet about this situation. I need to make sure that she understands the financial and legal consequences of ever telling anyone what she learns." Victoria did exactly that. Victoria called Sarah. Victoria explained that Marcus needed a live-in caregiver for the next 2 months. Victoria offered Sarah $100,000 for those 2 months. Victoria also explained that if Sarah ever disclosed anything she learned about Marcus's personal life or his home situation, there would be immediate legal action and financial penalties in the tens of millions of dollars. Sarah accepted the job. Sarah moved into Marcus's house. Sarah became Marcus's caregiver. The first week was awkward. Marcus was in pain. Marcus was dependent on Sarah for basic tasks. Marcus was furious at the universe for putting him in this position. But the second week, something unexpected happened. David came to the house. Marcus was in the living room when David walked through the front door. David had a key. David had always had a key. Sarah watched as Marcus's face changed. Sarah watched as pain and longing and fear all crossed his features at the same time. "You shouldn't be here," Marcus said. "I know," David said. "But I needed to see you. I needed to know that you're okay." David looked at Sarah. Sarah understood that she was witnessing something private. Sarah started to leave the room. "No," Marcus said. "Stay. Sarah is going to find out eventually. She might as well find out now." Sarah turned back. Marcus looked at David with an expression so full of love and pain that Sarah felt like she was intruding just by looking at it. "This is David," Marcus said to Sarah. "David has been in my life for 12 years. David is the person I love most in the world. David is the reason I've had to maintain the life that I maintain. David is the secret that I've been protecting for over a decade." Sarah didn't say anything. Sarah was processing what Marcus had just told her. "I'm gay," Marcus said. "I've been gay my entire life. I've hidden it from the world because I thought that if anyone found out, my career would be over. I thought that if anyone found out, my family would disown me. I thought that if anyone found out, I would lose everything." Marcus paused. He looked at David. "But the real cost of hiding has been much higher than anything I would have lost by being honest," Marcus continued. "The real cost has been my freedom. The real cost has been my peace. The real cost has been the years I've spent with the person I love, knowing that I could never introduce him to anyone, knowing that I could never publicly acknowledge him, knowing that if I had any kind of public relationship with him, everything would collapse." Sarah listened. Sarah understood that she had been brought into something much bigger than she had realized. Sarah understood that she was now complicit in Marcus's secret, whether she wanted to be or not. Over the next 2 months, Sarah's job transformed from being Marcus's caregiver to being Marcus's confidant. Sarah spent time with Marcus and David. Sarah watched them together. Sarah saw the way they looked at each other. Sarah understood that what she was seeing was genuine love, the kind of love that survives a decade of hiding and lies and fear. Sarah also started to understand the cost of Marcus's secret. Sarah understood that Marcus had never come out to his family. Sarah understood that Marcus had never publicly acknowledged his sexuality. Sarah understood that Marcus had spent decades building a public persona that was completely separate from his private reality. One night, David was cooking dinner. Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table with his arms still in a cast. Sarah was watching from the doorway, not wanting to intrude but also not wanting to leave. David and Marcus were talking about something Marcus had said in an interview about women in film. "You could say that," David said to Marcus. "You could say that you believe in giving women opportunities in this industry." "But that's not what he asked me," Marcus said. "He asked me about my personal relationships. He asked me if I was dating anyone." "And you said no," David said. "You lied." "I lied," Marcus agreed. "I lied because I was afraid." David turned around. David's face showed hurt and resignation. the expression of someone who had heard this same conversation many times before. "I'm not asking you to come out," David said quietly. "I'm not asking you to destroy your career or your family relationships. I'm just asking you to acknowledge that I exist. I'm just asking you to admit that there is someone in your life who loves you. I'm not asking you to marry me or to make some grand public gesture. I'm just asking you to let me be real." Marcus looked at David. Marcus's eyes were filled with tears. "I know," Marcus said. "And I know that what I'm asking of you is unfair. I know that I'm asking you to love me while I pretend that you don't exist. I know that the cost of being with me is that you have to be invisible." Sarah left the kitchen. Sarah understood that she had just witnessed something that Marcus never intended for anyone to see. Sarah understood that she was now holding on to a secret that was even bigger than the original secret point 2 months past. Marcus's injuries healed. Marcus no longer needed Sarah as a caregiver. Sarah's contract was ending. Sarah was supposed to leave. Sarah was supposed to go back to being Marcus's assistant and pretend that the past 2 months had never happened. But something had changed. Sarah had changed. Sarah had realized that she couldn't pretend anymore. Sarah had realized that she couldn't be complicit in Marcus's secret while remaining silent about what she knew. Sarah requested a meeting with Marcus. They sat in his office. Marcus was waiting for Sarah to tell him that she was going to expose him. Marcus was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Instead, Sarah said something different. "I'm not going to tell anyone," Sarah said. "But I need you to know what the cost of my silence is. The cost is that you have to be honest about who you are. The cost is that you have to stop hiding. The cost is that you have to let people see the real Marcus Sterling." "I can't do that," Marcus said. "You know what would happen." "No," Sarah said. "I don't know. Because you've never actually tried. You've spent your entire life assuming what would happen if people found out that you're gay. But you've never actually tested that assumption. You've never actually been brave enough to let the world see who you really are." Marcus stood up. Marcus walked to the window. Marcus looked out at the city that had made him powerful but that had also imprisoned him. "If I come out," Marcus said, "I lose my career. I lose my family. I lose everything I've built." "Maybe," Sarah said. "Or maybe you don't. Maybe some people stop working with you. Maybe your family needs time to adjust. But maybe you also get to be yourself. Maybe you get to introduce David as your partner instead of pretending he doesn't exist. Maybe you get to live in the light instead of in the shadows." Marcus turned around. Marcus's face was angry. "You have no idea what you're asking of me," Marcus said. "I know exactly what I'm asking," Sarah said. "I'm asking you to be brave. I'm asking you to be the man that David deserves. I'm asking you to be authentic. And I'm asking you because I believe that the cost of continuing to hide is going to be higher than the cost of telling the truth." Marcus didn't make a decision immediately. Marcus spent days thinking about what Sarah had said. Marcus spent time with David. Marcus thought about the past 12 years. Marcus thought about all the moments that could have been shared with the people he loved if he had been brave enough to be honest about who he was. 1 week later, Marcus did something that shocked everyone in the entertainment industry. Marcus did an interview with one of the biggest media outlets in the world. In the interview, Marcus talked about his journey. Marcus talked about hiding his sexuality for 40 years. Marcus talked about the cost of living a double life. Marcus talked about David. Marcus said, "I've spent my entire career telling stories about the human experience. I've spent my entire career exploring what it means to be authentic and vulnerable. But I haven't lived my own life authentically. I haven't let the world see who I actually am. That ends today. I am a gay man. I have been in love with the same man for 12 years. And I'm tired of pretending that he doesn't exist." The interview went viral. The media exploded. Some people supported Marcus. Some people condemned him. Some people said they would never watch his films again. Some people said that they finally understood why his stories were so powerful. Because he understood what it meant to hide the most important part of yourself. But something unexpected happened. Something much bigger than the scandal happened. Other people in the entertainment industry started to come out. Other people who had been hiding their sexuality, their relationships, their true selves. They started to find courage in Marcus's honesty. They started to speak their truth. And Marcus's career didn't end. Yes, some projects were cancelled. Yes, some people refused to work with him. But many more people supported him. Many more people wanted to work with a filmmaker who was finally being honest about who he was. Many more people were inspired by his courage. 1 year after coming out, Marcus was sitting in a restaurant with David. It was a high-end restaurant in West Hollywood. It was the kind of restaurant where celebrities went to be seen. It was the kind of restaurant where everything that happened would eventually make it into the gossip columns and the entertainment news websites. They were sitting openly as a couple. They weren't hiding. They weren't sitting in a back corner. They were at a table near the window. They were visible. They were real. People recognized Marcus. People came over to talk to him. And Marcus introduced David as his partner. Marcus didn't hide. Marcus didn't deflect. Marcus didn't apologize for David's presence or make excuses about why they were together. Marcus simply acknowledged the truth with a quiet confidence that suggested he had made peace with his decision. "This is David," Marcus said to a director who had worked with him on multiple films. "David is my partner. David is a professor at USC. David is the most important person in my life." The director smiled. The director shook David's hand. The director said, "It's wonderful to finally meet you. Marcus has mentioned you in every conversation we've had for the past year." After the director left, David reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. David's face showed something that Sarah had never seen before, even during the most intimate moments of their relationship. Something deeper and more fundamental than love. David's face showed peace. David's face showed someone who was no longer invisible. David's face showed someone who had finally been acknowledged by the person he loved most in the world. "Thank you," David said. His voice was quiet but full of emotion. "For what?" Marcus asked, though he understood exactly what David meant. "For finally seeing me," David said. "For finally letting me be real. For finally introducing me not as a friend or a colleague, but as who I actually am to you." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. Marcus understood in that moment the full weight of what he had been asking of David for 12 years. Marcus understood that he had been asking David to love him while remaining invisible. Marcus understood that he had been asking David to accept a relationship that was real in private but non-existent in public. "I'm sorry it took me so long," Marcus said. "I'm not interested in apologies," David said. "I'm interested in this. I'm interested in us being real. I'm interested in the future where we get to do this. Sit in restaurants, introduce each other, exist in the world without hiding." Marcus reached over and kissed David, right there in the restaurant, in front of everyone. It wasn't a dramatic gesture. It wasn't meant to be shocking. It was simply the gesture of a man finally being honest about who he loved. The restaurant erupted in applause. People who had recognized Marcus stood up and clapped. People who didn't know who Marcus was but understood that they had witnessed something significant also stood up and clapped. The applause wasn't for Marcus the filmmaker. The applause was for two people finally being brave enough to be real with each other in public. Marcus thought about the accident that had changed everything. Marcus thought about the 5-minute moment when his car was hit and his life was forever altered. Marcus thought about how a random accident had forced him to confront the cost of his secret. Marcus thought about how Sarah's courage to speak truth had forced him to make the most important decision of his life. If the accident hadn't happened, Marcus would probably still be hiding. If he hadn't needed a caregiver, he probably never would have been forced to let someone into the secret that defined his life. If Sarah hadn't been brave enough to tell him that the cost of hiding was too high, he probably would have continued his double life indefinitely. Marcus realized that he had been thinking about the accident all wrong. Marcus had been thinking about it as a tragedy, as something that had disrupted his life. But the accident had actually been a gift. The accident had forced him toward authenticity. The accident had forced him toward freedom. Marcus's family came around, but not without difficulty. Marcus's mother cried when she first learned that Marcus was gay. She didn't cry because she was disappointed in Marcus. She cried because she realized how much pain her son had been carrying. She cried because she understood that Marcus had spent his entire adult life believing that his family would reject him if they knew the truth. She cried because she had inadvertently created an environment where her son felt like he had to hide. But she also hugged David. She pulled David into an embrace that lasted a long time. Marcus's mother said, "I'm sorry that my son felt like he couldn't tell us. I'm sorry that he was so afraid. But I'm proud of him for being brave now. And I'm grateful that you loved him enough to wait while he figured this out." David's eyes filled with tears. David had spent 12 years wondering if Marcus's family would ever know he existed. David had spent 12 years being a secret. Now he was being welcomed into the family with genuine warmth and acceptance. Marcus's father took much longer. Marcus's father grew up in a different era. Marcus's father had traditional beliefs about what a man should be and what a family should look like. When Marcus first told his father that he was gay, his father didn't respond. His father didn't call. His father didn't reach out. Marcus gave his father space. Marcus didn't demand acceptance. Marcus simply lived his truth and waited to see if his father would eventually come around. 6 months after Marcus came out publicly, his father called him. His father's voice was hesitant. "I've been thinking," his father said. "I've been thinking about what you said. I've been thinking about how long you've been unhappy. I've been thinking about how I would have felt if I had to hide the person I love. And I think I understand now." Marcus's father paused. "I'm sorry," his father said. "I'm sorry that I made you feel like you couldn't tell me. I'm sorry that I created an environment where you felt like you had to hide. I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you." Marcus cried. Marcus had waited for this moment for so long that he had almost given up hoping for it. 1 year after Marcus came out, his father attended a pride parade with Marcus and David. Marcus's father wore a shirt that said, "I love my gay son." Marcus's father held a sign that said, "I'm proud of my son for being brave." Marcus's father marched in the parade with thousands of other people who were celebrating love and authenticity and freedom. At the end of the parade, Marcus's father hugged both Marcus and David. Marcus's father said, "I'm sorry it took me so long to get here. But I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere." Sarah became much more to Marcus than his assistant. Sarah became his friend. Sarah became the person who had forced him to be honest when no one else would. Sarah became the person who had shown him that the cost of his secret was higher than the cost of the truth. Sarah and Marcus had weekly coffee meetings. During these meetings, they would talk about everything. Marcus's films, David's teaching, Sarah's life outside of work. Sarah had started dating. Sarah was building her own life. But she and Marcus remained connected by the profound moment when she had been brave enough to tell him the truth. "I want you to know something," Marcus told Sarah during one of these meetings. "I want you to know that I'm grateful for what you did. I know it was scary. I know it was risky. I know you could have lost your job, lost your reputation, lost everything." "I almost did quit," Sarah admitted. "I went back and forth for weeks about whether I should say anything. I was terrified that I would lose the best job I'd ever had. I was terrified that you would fire me on the spot. I was terrified that I was overstepping." "But you did it anyway," Marcus said. "You were terrified and you did it anyway. That's the definition of courage." "I did it because I couldn't watch you disappear anymore," Sarah said. "I did it because I could see the cost of your secret in your face every single day. I did it because I believed that you deserved better. I did it because David deserved better." Marcus reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. Marcus said, "Thank you. For everything." 2 years after coming out, Marcus won an Academy Award for Best Picture for a film that he had directed and produced. The film was about a man who had spent his entire life hiding, and what happened when he finally decided to be honest. When Marcus walked onto the stage to accept the award, he was holding a speech that he had prepared. But when he looked out at the audience, he saw David sitting in the front row. He saw his mother and his father sitting together. He saw Sarah sitting with her own date, cheering for him. And Marcus abandoned his prepared speech. Instead, Marcus said, "I want to dedicate this award to the people who loved me enough to force me to be brave. I want to dedicate this to David, who waited 12 years for me to finally introduce him to the world. I want to dedicate this to Sarah, who had the courage to tell me the truth when I was too afraid to hear it. I want to dedicate this to my parents, who eventually understood that my happiness was more important than their assumptions about who I should be." Marcus paused. He was crying. "I made this film because I finally had the courage to tell the truth. I made this film because someone loved me enough to force me to be brave. I made this film because I finally understood that my story was worth telling, and that hiding my story was the real tragedy." The audience stood up. The entire room applauded. People were crying. People were moved by the honesty and vulnerability in Marcus's words. 5 years after coming out, Marcus was 47 years old. Marcus was out. Marcus was happy. Marcus was in a committed relationship with David. They got married in California in front of hundreds of people. The wedding was featured in major media outlets. The wedding showed two people who loved each other getting to finally celebrate that love publicly. They are building a life together without hiding, without fear. They are building a life where they can be themselves completely. They are building a life where David is no longer invisible. Marcus's career has evolved significantly. Marcus is not making the same kind of films that he was making before he came out. Marcus is making films that explore what it means to be authentic, what it means to be vulnerable, what it means to love someone despite the cost. Marcus's films have become even more powerful because they are now rooted in his genuine experience instead of his performed experience. His films have won more awards. His films have been nominated for major awards. More importantly, his films have been seen by millions of people. His films have touched people. His films have helped people understand what it feels like to hide and what it feels like to finally be free. David is a professor at USC now. David teaches a class called Authenticity in Film. David teaches a class called The Cost of Secrets. In these classes, David uses his own experience to help students understand the real-world impact of the stories they are telling. David has become recognized as an expert on the intersection of film and identity. David has become someone who helps people understand how to tell stories that matter. Sarah is now the co-producer on several of Marcus's films. Sarah is no longer his assistant. Sarah is his partner in his creative work. Sarah has become a respected producer in her own right. Sarah has become the person who had the courage to tell Marcus the truth when no one else would. Sarah is also the founder of an organization that helps people who are coming out or dealing with secrets. Sarah's organization provides support groups, therapy, legal advice, and community for people who are navigating the cost of hiding and the path toward authenticity. Sarah has transformed her moment of courage into a lifetime of helping others find their own courage. Marcus's family is fully involved in his life now. Marcus's parents attend his film premieres. Marcus's parents volunteer with LGBTQ+ organizations. Marcus's parents have become advocates for their son's community. Marcus's mother gives talks about the importance of accepting your children for who they are. Marcus's father has become a mentor to other fathers whose sons have come out. The entertainment industry has changed since Marcus came out. More filmmakers have come out. More actors have come out. More people who work behind the scenes have come out. More stories are being told. More people are living authentically. More people understand that hiding your truth is a form of self-destruction. Marcus didn't single-handedly change the industry, but he was part of a movement toward honesty and authenticity. Marcus was part of a wave of people who decided that living authentically was worth the risk. Marcus was one of many who realized that the cost of the secret was higher than the cost of the truth. Marcus still thinks about the accident that changed everything. Marcus sometimes drives past the place where the accident happened. Marcus remembers the exact feeling of his car being hit. Marcus remembers the moment when he realized that his life was about to change forever. Marcus understands that he was lucky. Marcus understands that the accident forced him into a situation he would never have voluntarily chosen. Marcus understands that Sarah was exactly the person he needed at exactly the right moment. Marcus understands that if any of these variables had been different, he might have continued hiding for the rest of his life. Marcus has written a memoir. The memoir is called The Cost of Hiding, a filmmaker's journey to authenticity. The memoir tells the story of his coming out. The memoir explores the 12 years he spent hiding. The memoir explains what it felt like to live a double life. The memoir describes the moment when he realized that hiding was destroying him from the inside out. But more importantly, the memoir tells the story of liberation. The memoir tells the story of what happened when Marcus decided that being honest was worth whatever consequences might follow. The memoir tells the story of how his life actually got better after coming out, even though he thought it would get worse. The memoir has been read by hundreds of thousands of people. The memoir has been translated into 20 languages. The memoir has helped people around the world understand that they are not alone in their struggle to be authentic. The memoir has helped people understand that their secret is costing them more than they realize. So here's what I want to ask you in the comments section. And I want you to really think about this because your answer matters deeply. Have you ever hidden a part of yourself? Have you ever pretended to be someone you're not to avoid judgment or rejection? Have you ever stayed silent about who you really are because you were afraid of the consequences? Because I want you to know that you are not alone. Millions of people are hiding something. Millions of people are living a version of a double life. Millions of people are paying the cost of their secret every single day. Have you ever been complicit in someone else's secret? Have you ever known the truth about someone but felt powerless to speak it? Have you ever realized that your silence was actually contributing to someone's unhappiness? Have you ever wondered if you should say something even though you were terrified of the consequences? Have you ever wondered what the cost of your secret actually is? Have you ever calculated the price of hiding versus the price of being honest? Have you ever realized that hiding might be more expensive than you thought? Because I want you to understand something. Every day that you hide, you are losing a piece of yourself. Every day that you hide, you are telling the people around you that you don't trust them with your truth. Every day that you hide, you are reinforcing the belief that who you are is not acceptable. Have you ever had someone force you to be honest when you didn't want to be? Have you ever been grateful for that honesty even though it was painful at the time? Have you ever realized that the person who loved you most was the person willing to tell you the hard truth? Because sometimes the people who love us most are not the ones who make us feel comfortable. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones willing to challenge us, push us, and force us to face the truths we've been avoiding. Rate this story from 0 to 10. Tell me if it resonated with you. Tell me if you're hiding something. Tell me if you believe that authenticity is worth the cost. Tell me if you've ever had someone tell you the truth that you didn't want to hear but desperately needed to hear. But most importantly, tell me this. What secret are you keeping? What part of yourself are you hiding? What would it take for you to be brave enough to tell the truth? What would change in your life if you finally allowed yourself to be authentic? Because I want you to understand something fundamental, and I need you to really internalize this. The cost of hiding is always higher than the cost of being honest. The cost of your secret is not just emotional. The cost of your secret is not just psychological. The cost of your secret is stealing your freedom, your peace, your authenticity. The cost is preventing the people who love you from actually knowing who you are. The cost is the life you could be living if you weren't spending all your energy maintaining a facade. Every moment you spend hiding is a moment you could be spending being yourself. Every dollar you spend on maintaining your secret is a dollar you could be spending on building the life you actually want. Every ounce of energy you use to keep your secret hidden is energy you could be using to pursue your dreams, to build your relationships, to create the authentic life you deserve. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications. Because there are so many stories like this one. Stories about people hiding their truth. Stories about the cost of secrets. Stories about what happens when someone is finally brave enough to be authentic. Stories about how coming out is not the end of your life. It's the beginning of your actual life. And if you're in Marcus's situation right now, if you're hiding who you are, if you're maintaining a facade, if you're afraid of what will happen if the truth comes out, if you're in a relationship where you have to be invisible, I want you to know, There is another way. There is a way to live authentically. There is a way to be yourself without hiding. It will be scary. It will be difficult. It will require courage. But it is possible. Your truth is worth telling. Your story is worth sharing. Your authentic self is worth more than any secret. Your happiness is worth more than other people's comfort with who you are. Your freedom is worth fighting for. Don't wait for an accident to force you toward authenticity. Don't wait for someone else to speak the truth for you. Don't wait until you've wasted decades of your life hiding. Be brave now. Tell the truth now. Choose yourself now. The people who truly love you will accept your truth. The people who can't accept your truth are showing you who they really are, and you have to decide if their comfort is more important than your freedom. For most of us, the answer is no. For most of us, our freedom is worth more than anyone's discomfort with who we are. I'll see you next time.